Welcome to Four Wheels in a Seat. My name is Alex Dalrymple, and this is the channel where week by week you can see brand new cars reviewed. But you might end up missing out on one if you don't subscribe. So please hit that subscribe button and give me a like too if you like what you see. Please. Now, I've been given a very brief loan of a Tesla Model Y because Tesla like to do things differently. They only loan out their cars overnight, where usually when I'm reviewing a car, I have it for a whole week to, really discover its quirks and find out what it's like. So this is going to be a slightly less comprehensive review of this car, but I'm sorry, I'm on the clock. Now, firstly, let me start off by saying that there are a number of electric cars available. Tesla are no longer the only game in town, but I think that they still do it better on the whole than pretty much anybody else in terms of what these cars are like to drive. Dynamically, they are fantastic. They're quick, they're really fun to throw around in the corners, and of course the acceleration is just crazy. So Tesla is still the best at making electric cars as far as the driving experience goes. The rest, though, is just a little bit all over the place. So this is the Model Y. It's the smaller of the two SUVs that Tesla offer. And of course, just as an aside, the Tesla model numbers are S, 3, X, and Y. And of course, if you turn that 3 around and turn it into an E, that spells sexy. And also, hats off to Elon. Geeks can spot geeks, but ludicrous mode and the Tesla Model S Plaid, Plaid and ludicrous mode are both taken directly from the 1987 Star Wars parody film Spaceballs. So, as a fellow geek, I respect that. This version of the Model Y is rear-wheel drive. It only has one electric motor and it can accelerate to 100 km per hour in 6.9 seconds. Full range on a full charge is 455 kilometers, and you can add an extra 261 kilometers of range at a supercharger in just 15 minutes. Inside, of course, we have the same minimalist interior that you find in the Model 3, which I both love and hate. I love it because it is something different. I dislike it because it is just so different, and I'm sure Tesla owners will tell you, just give it some time, you'll get used to it. Well, when you only have a car for one day, you don't really have a lot of time to get used to it, and it can become just a little bit frustrating because it is so different to any other car on the road to operate. Up front, of course, we have the giant center console screen, which is just like a huge tablet, and it is full of apps that look and are beautiful to use. There's streaming internet radio, there's digital radio, there's games, there's Netflix, there's Disney Plus, there's YouTube, which is all fantastic if you have to sit with your car for an hour or so while it's recharging. All of this is really, really good, and nobody does it better than Tesla. So on the infotainment front, definitely the best experience you're ever going to have. What's not quite so good, though, is the way that the actual car functions work. So to access that menu, you've got to hit the little car icon down here, and up pops a menu with relatively small text, which is actually on the other side of the screen from the driver. I'm not sure if it's the same layout for left-hand drive cars or if it's been flipped for the right-hand drive market. But anyway, there's a whole menu of fairly small text there, which you can scroll through. It's kind of like opening up a menu on your laptop and go through and make changes. Now, the problem with this is that there's absolutely no way you can do this by touch. You really do have to stop and look, or at the very least take your eyes off the road, which is a bit of a concern. And then within those menus, you've got to kind of scroll up and scroll down to access the full screen of options. Most of this stuff you can do while the car is stopped, but these are functions that you can do in other cars while you're driving. So that is just a little bit of a usability problem there. They've sort of sacrificed usability for interior design. Also on the screen is the nav system, which just works so well. It is the best you'll find anywhere. It is so responsive, it's never laggy. It is really, really good. We also have a number of cameras dotted around the car, and the images for those flash up on the screen. Again, razor sharp. They almost look like they're in full HD, and given the limited amount of visibility you have through the regular mirrors in this car, you'll be relying on those cameras a lot. Another function I also really like is the radar screen over here on the right hand side, which shows you very accurately all of the cars around you. It also can tell the difference between cars, trucks, bicycles, pedestrians. You see animated pedestrians walking across the road in front of you at crossings, and even witches' hats. It is a really good system. So that's the screen. Under that we have a pad for wireless phone charging. There's space for 2 phones. That's the first time I've seen that in any car. Very, very handy, and it seems to charge my phone really, really quickly. A big storage bin under a slidey lid here, which just has a really nice feel to it. A couple of cup holders. The little plastic space just behind that here is where you tap your key when you first get in the car to basically turn it on. Under the nice soft lid here of the armrest is another huge storage bin. So interior storage in here is actually really, really good. In front of the driver, well, there's just a steering wheel, nothing else. There's no head-up display, which I would love. And of course, there's no instrument cluster. We've just got this very nice sort of bit of wood here, which has a really, really nice feel to it. The steering wheel, same as the Model 3. We've got 2 jog wheels here that change their usefulness depending on what you're doing on the center screen, so they can control all sorts of things like moving the mirrors, moving the steering wheel. You've got to basically select it on the screen first, and then the little jog wheels here adapt to whatever you need. Behind that we've got 2 stalks. One is the gear shifter, and it's actually really good once you get used to it. You can go between reverse and drive really, really quickly. Park, you just push the end of it. And on the left hand side we have the indicator stalk. You might have just heard a little ding there. Another feature that is really, really good is that this car looks at the traffic lights, and when they turn to green, if you don't move off straight away, you get a little ding there just to remind you, hey, you can go now. At first glance, there are no USB ports in this car, but if you hunt around, you'll find 2 hidden away here underneath the slidey lid in this big bin, and you've really got to look for them to find them. And there are 2 just underneath the rear air vents in the back here. Pairing your phone is really, really easy, and there is also the Tesla app, which you can use to control various functions on the car remotely, and it actually really does come in handy. The seats are vegan leather, and they are very comfortable. Full electric adjustment, they're heated, and there's good lumbar support too. So yeah, top marks for the seating comfort. The only problem I think is that I'm feeling like I'm sitting more on the car rather than in it, because the seating position is actually quite high, and even with that I cannot see the front of the car at all. It just drops away altogether to a very low nose there. So that does become a bit of an issue when you're parking. Just as well, this car is absolutely covered in sensors and cameras, because without them you would not be able to park safely. The one big downside of not having an instrument cluster in front of the driver is that the speedo is on the screen here, and you really need to take your eyes off the road to look at it. I often forget to look at it and suddenly realize that I'm going over the speed limit. Some sort of a display in front of the driver would be really, really good. As I mentioned at the top, this car has 1 electric motor and it's rear wheel drive. So acceleration isn't sort of that lightning quick kind of thing that you see on a lot of YouTube videos where people are scaring the living daylights out of each other. 6.9 seconds to 100 k's per hour. It's so rapid though that it actually feels faster, because it's just so linear. It just goes and goes and goes. So really, it's perfectly fine. There are a few little drive mode adjustments you can make. For example, you can change the steering. There's comfort, normal, and sport. I like sport because it adds a lot more sort of weight to the wheel, and you get less of that sort of disconnected kind of feeling that you get in comfort mode. Yeah, sport is definitely much better. The all-glass roof is absolutely breathtaking to look at, but the problem is that it does warm up the car quite a bit on a hot day when the car's parked in the sun, and the air conditioning really struggles to cool it down in a hurry. Because hot air rises, of course, and I'm quite tall, my head is just sort of permanently in this hot sort of zone up the top here. So the air conditioning actually doesn't feel as good as it does in other cars. But I do like the way the air conditioning works, where you can sort of slide around on the screen here and change the direction of the air. It looks really cool. In terms of build quality, it feels really, really good. There are two things I've noticed though. The first is that there is a bit of a rattle in the back of the car, which I can't tell where it's coming from. Whenever we go over a bump, there's just a bit of shaking going on. And it's not doing it now, but earlier, yesterday, I had a problem with a window where it was wound down and I put it back up, but it wouldn't fully wind up. It would go all the way up and then come back down about 10 centimeters. And no matter how many times I tried to put it up, it would come back down. I don't know if that's some sort of weird feature, but it was lucky it wasn't raining, because if it was a wet day, I would be getting very, very damp. Storage space in the back, well, it is absolutely enormous. There's around 2,200 litres of space when you have the rear seats down, and I couldn't find the exact stats, but it's still huge even with the rear seats up. So don't worry, you've got plenty of room to carry stuff around in the Tesla Model Y. With the 20-inch wheels on this car adding a couple of grand to the price, the Tesla Model Y, this one anyway, comes in at around about $76,500, which I think is actually worth it, because this is a really nice, good, comfortable car, and the performance is fantastic and it's really, really good to drive. A couple of quality issues aside, I really like it. But the thing is, of course, although Tesla pretty much has invented what the modern electric car is, they're no longer the only game in town, and there are new electric models appearing on the scene from every major manufacturer just about every week at the moment, and a lot of them are very, very good and not quite as expensive as this. So while this is a really good car and I really like it, definitely make sure you check out some of the other ones as well.